In the village of Mbale, Uganda, lived a quiet girl named Nafula Okello. Everyone knew her as Abo Okello's younger sister. Abo was a respected farmer, but Nafula had little of her own. She didn't have fancy clothes, jewelry, or anything people would notice. All she had was one dress. It wasn't just any dress. It was hand-sewn by her late mother. Bright yellow, with green embroidery along the sleeves, simple but special. Nafula treasured it more than anything. It wasn't just a piece of cloth to her. It was her only reminder of her mother's love. The dress made Nafula feel proud. When she wore it, she felt like she belonged. In 2 days, there was going to be a big village celebration, a market fair where everyone would gather, laugh, and dance. Nafula had been quietly waiting for it, hoping she could wear her yellow dress there. She had already pictured herself walking through the fair, people smiling at her. But behind her gentle face, Nafula's life wasn't easy. Her brother's wife, enkay, didn't like her. Ever since enkay married Abo, she treated Nafula like a burden. She would give her extra chores, harsh words, and cold looks. Nafula tried to stay out of trouble, always keeping to herself. She swept the yard, fetched water, and stayed quiet. But no matter how much enkay ignored or scolded her, Nafula held onto her one joy, her mother's dress. That dress was her hope, her comfort. As the fair day got closer, Nafula carefully washed the dress, drying it under the sun, checking every thread like it was gold. She folded it neatly and kept it safe in her room. It was more than fabric. It was her mother's hands, her memory, her love. Little did Nafula know, her simple treasure was about to change everything. Nafula's sister-in-law, enkay, never liked her. From the day enkay married Abo, she treated Nafula like she didn't belong. She would give her the hardest chores, speak to her with sharp words, and make sure Nafula always felt small. Nafula never fought back. She just stayed quiet, doing her work and holding on to the one thing that made her feel special, her yellow dress. But enkay had noticed how Nafula cared for that dress. And one afternoon, when Nafula was down by the river washing clothes, enkay did something cruel. With no one watching, enkay walked into Nafula's small room. The yellow dress was folded neatly on the bed, ready for the fair. Enkay picked it up, held it in her hands for a moment, then walked straight to the kitchen. Without a second thought, she threw the dress into the open cooking fire. The flames caught quickly. The bright yellow cloth turned black, curling into ash. Enkay stood there, smiling as if it meant nothing. When Nafula returned from the river, tired and wet, she noticed smoke. She rushed inside. Her eyes fell on the black pile where her dress had been. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she saw enkay standing near the fire, arms crossed, wearing that cold smile. "You don't need such things," enkay said, her voice flat. "Girls like you don't belong at the fair." Nafula felt her heart crack, but she said nothing. Her hands trembled, but she kept them at her sides. She didn't cry, not in front of enkay. Her chest ached like something inside her had been burned along with the dress. But she refused to let the tears fall. Instead, she turned away, walking out slowly, her eyes dry but her soul on fire. In that moment, Nafula changed. It wasn't just about a dress anymore. Something deeper had been taken from her, and something stronger had been born in its place. By morning, the whole village knew. enkay made sure of it. She told everyone that Nafula had cried just because of a single dress. Her words spread like smoke in the wind. People at the market, by the river, outside their homes, all whispered the same thing. Nafula cried over a dress. Nafula is so poor. She had only one dress. Children pointed at her when she passed, giggling behind their hands. Women shook their heads, eyes full of pity or mockery. Nafula felt their stares, but she kept her head down. She didn't answer, didn't look at anyone. Her feet moved quietly across the dirt, sweeping the yard, fetching water, gathering firewood. Her hands worked like they always had, but her heart felt heavier with every whisper, every laugh. The yellow dress that once made her feel proud was now a memory turned into ash. And now, even her pain had become a story for others to enjoy. enkay sat outside with her friends, laughing loudly, making sure Nafula could hear. Still, Nafula stayed silent. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. But inside her, something had shifted. It wasn't just sadness anymore. There was a heat growing in her chest, slow and steady, like coals under a fire. She swept the same spot twice without noticing. Her mind wasn't on the broom or the water bucket. It was on the burning feeling inside her. She remembered how her mother once said, "True strength is quiet until it must speak." Nafula didn't know yet what she would do, but she knew she couldn't let things stay like this. A simple dress had been all she had, and even that was taken from her. Her silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was waiting. Inside, she promised herself, this was not how her story would end. Something was coming, even if she didn't know exactly what yet. And when it did, the same people who laughed would see her in a new way. That evening, after the sun had set and the village grew quiet, Nafula sat alone under the old fig tree behind her house. The same spot where she used to sit with her mother. Her mind was full of heavy thoughts, but as she sat there, she suddenly remembered something her mother always told her in a soft voice. True beauty is not in cloth, but in character. The words felt clearer now, as if her mother was whispering them right beside her. Nafula wiped her face and stood up slowly. Her heart guided her back inside the house. Under the creaking floorboards, there was something she had once seen long ago, a small locked wooden box her mother had left for her. Nafula had never touched it before, but tonight, everything felt different. Her hands shook as she knelt down, lifted the loose board, and pulled the box out. Felt heavier than she expected. With careful fingers, Nafula opened the box. Inside, resting like treasure, was a neatly rolled piece of bright red kitenge fabric. Its colors shone even in the dim light. Beside the cloth was a folded letter, written in her mother's handwriting. Nafula unfolded it slowly, eyes moving over each word. Said, "Nafula, if you ever need to remind yourself of who you are, make something from this. You have my hands and my heart." "Mama." Nafula pressed the letter to her chest, eyes closed. For the first time since her dress had been burned, she felt warmth instead of pain. Her mother had known. Even years ago, she had left this gift for her daughter to find at just the right moment. That bright red cloth wasn't just fabric, it was a sign. A quiet message telling Nafula she still had value, even without her yellow dress. Her mother's hands had once sewn for her, and now it was Nafula's turn. As she rolled the fabric back up with care, a quiet strength filled her. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The next morning, as the sky turned pale, Nafula folded the bright red fabric carefully and walked through the quiet village streets. Her steps were slow but sure. She carried the cloth close to her chest like it was something precious. Her heart beat faster than usual, but she didn't turn back. She knew exactly where she was going. At the far edge of the village lived Mukasa, the old tailor. His shop was small, built from wood and iron sheets, with spools of thread hanging by the window. Mukasa was known for making wedding clothes and special garments for elders. Nafula had watched him many times but never spoken to him before. Today was different. She pushed the door gently. It creaked open, and Mukasa looked up from his workbench. His sharp eyes noticed her right away. Without a word, Nafula stepped forward and unrolled the red fabric across his table. The sunlight caught the colors, and Mukasa's eyes widened a little. He touched the cloth slowly, running his fingers along the edge. This is fine fabric. Special," he said, voice low. "Where did you get it?" Nafula's lips curved into a quiet smile. "From my mother," she replied softly. Mukasa didn't ask anything more. His eyes seemed to understand. He gave a small nod and said, "I will sew something for you, a new dress, but we keep it secret." Nafula nodded once. Her throat felt tight, but her heart felt lighter than it had in days. Mukasa said it would take one night. That night felt longer than any before. Nafula could not sleep. She lay on her mat with her eyes open, staring at the roof in the dark. Her mind pictured what the dress would look like, how it would feel against her skin, how people would look at her when she wore it. Her hands gripped the letter from her mother as she waited. Nervous, yes, hopeful even more. For the first time in days, Nafula had something to look forward to again. The morning of the village fair finally arrived. The sky was clear, and music already floated through the air. Nafula woke early, heart racing. Her steps felt light as she made her way to Mukasa's shop. Her hands felt sweaty, but she didn't stop until she stood in front of his wooden door. She pushed it open slowly. There in the window, catching the morning sun, hung the most beautiful dress Nafula had ever seen. Bright red, glowing like fire, with golden threads woven along the edges. The golden patterns shimmered with every small breeze. For a moment, Nafula just stood there staring, her breath caught in her chest. Mukasa stepped forward with a quiet smile, his hands steady as he took the dress down. He held it out to her and said, "This is yours. Wear it with pride." Nafula's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the fabric. It felt soft, smooth, yet strong beneath her touch. Without saying a word, she stepped into the back room and changed. When she looked at herself in the small mirror, she didn't recognize the girl staring back. Her hair was simple, but the dress lit her up. The red cloth hugged her shoulders just right, the golden threads catching the light like little sparks. For the first time, Nafula didn't feel like the quiet girl with only one dress. She didn't feel poor or small. She felt like someone new, someone who had lost something, yet found something greater in its place. Stepping outside into the sun, Nafula's eyes lifted with quiet confidence. People were already gathering for the fair. The music grew louder, and she could hear voices calling and laughing. But this time she didn't feel like hiding. From the ashes of her yellow dress, she had risen. Not just in a new dress, but with new strength. The girl who once walked with her head down was now ready to step into the crowd, seen and remembered for something greater. The village fair was already alive with music and dancing when Nafula arrived. The drums beat loud, and children ran between stalls selling fruits and handmade things. Nafula walked slowly, her red dress moving with her like flowing fire. Her heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. Step by step, she walked deeper into the fair, and soon, people began to notice. First, it was just a few glances. Then faces turned fully. Eyes widened. Whispers passed from one person to another. "Is that Nafula?" someone said quietly. A woman nudged her friend, both staring in surprise. The quiet girl everyone once ignored was now walking proudly in the middle of the crowd, wearing a dress brighter than any other. The golden threads on her dress caught the sunlight, sparkling like flames. Up ahead, Aking stood with her friends, laughing loudly as she always did. Her laughter filled the air until her eyes landed on Nafula. Her voice stopped, her smile faded. Aking's friends followed her gaze, and silence spread like a wave. The drums kept playing, but no one seemed to hear. Even Abo, standing near the center of the fair, froze in place. His mouth opened slightly, eyes full of disbelief. He had never seen his sister like this before. Not the girl who quietly swept the yard. Not the one who walked with her head down. This was someone different. "Sister." Abo's voice was soft, full of shock. Nafula didn't rush. She didn't hide. Her steps were steady, her chin lifted. She looked at everyone, even at Aking, without anger or fear. The same people who once whispered about her being poor now stared in silence, unsure of what to say. Nafula had walked back into the same place where she once felt small, but this time, she stood taller than all of them. The red dress wasn't just cloth, it was her new skin, and as the sunlight touched her, she looked like a flame that couldn't be put out. Aking couldn't stand the silence anymore. Her feet moved before her mind caught up. She stepped right in front of Nafula, forcing a smile like nothing had happened. But her eyes showed something else, confusion, maybe even fear. Her voice came out calm, but everyone could hear it wasn't real. "Where did you get this dress?" Aking asked, glancing quickly at the golden threads shining in the sunlight. Nafula looked at her without flinching. Her smile wasn't loud or proud. It was quiet, steady. "From my mother," she said simply. Then she added, "and from my own hands." That sentence made the whispers grow again. People looked at each other. From her own hands? What did she mean? Abo stepped closer now, watching everything with sharp eyes. He had no idea his sister could so. But Nafula spoke again, calm and clear. "I learned from Mukasa," she said softly. "Over the years, in secret." It turned out Nafula had been visiting Mukasa many evenings, learning how to stitch cloth, how to cut fabric, how to use her mother's gift. It wasn't just Mukasa who made the dress. Nafula had stitched parts of it herself. The gold thread, the careful folds along the waist, her hands had done that. Abo's face changed as he heard this. He looked from Nafula to Enkay, his jaw tightening. Without a word, he pulled Enkay aside, his voice low but firm. No one could hear what he said, but his anger was clear. His sister had been treated badly, yet she had risen above it without making noise or complaint. For the first time, the family saw Nafula not as the poor girl with only one dress, but as a woman with pride, with skill, and with strength. She had carried herself with silence, but now her actions spoke louder than any words. And everyone in the village saw it, too. From that moment, no one looked at Nafula the same way again. After the fair, Nafula's life changed in ways she never imagined. The same women who once whispered about her now came to her with different words. They didn't laugh or gossip anymore. Instead, they asked quietly with hopeful eyes, "Nafula, can you make dresses for us too?" One by one, they stood in front of her, holding pieces of cloth or simply empty hands, waiting for her answer. Nafula didn't hesitate. She smiled and nodded. Not long after, Mukasa, the old tailor, came to Nafula and said, "My hands are tired. It's your time now." He handed her the keys to his workshop, a small wooden building near the market. Nafula stepped inside, her heart full, remembering all the evenings she had spent there learning in silence. Now it was hers. At first, it was just a few women from the village. Then word spread to nearby villages. People traveled to Mbale just to have Nafula sew for them. Her designs were different, not just beautiful but filled with meaning. Bright colors, strong stitches, dresses that told quiet stories through their patterns. Soon, everyone knew her name, Nafula Okello, the great dressmaker. Her workshop became busy every day. The same yard where she once swept quietly was now full of people waiting to see her. But Nafula never rushed. She treated every dress like it mattered, as if it held someone's pride inside it, just like her mother's gift had once held hers. Sometimes, as she worked late into the night, Nafula would pause and look at the red dress she had made for herself, now hanging neatly in the corner. That dress was where it all began. The dress that had been born from ashes, from loss, from quiet strength. And all of it started because of the yellow dress that was burned. That fire didn't destroy her. It made her stronger. It gave her a reason to stand tall. And now, her name and her hands gave strength to others. Years passed, and Nafula's name traveled far beyond her village. One morning, she opened her own shop in the middle of Mbale town. The shop was simple but full of life, colorful fabrics hanging in the windows, sewing machines lined up inside, and a wooden sign above the door that read, "From ashes, beauty can rise." People from many villages visited just to see Nafula's work. But Nafula didn't just sew dresses anymore. She had made the shop into a place for young girls. Girls who had nothing, like she once did, now had a place to learn. Nafula taught them how to sew, how to cut fabric, how to hold a needle steady, and most importantly, how to believe in themselves. Each day, the shop buzzed with soft laughter, steady sewing, and quiet music playing in the background. Nafula walked between the girls, showing them how to fix a hem or how to make perfect stitches. Some girls came in shy with their heads down just like Nafula had once walked. But after weeks in Nafula creations, they stood taller, smiling as they wore clothes they had made with their own hands. Visitors often asked Nafula about her journey. They wanted to know how she became such a well-known dressmaker. Nafula would sit them down with a gentle smile and begin her story the same way every time. Her voice calm and clear, she would say, "Once, my only dress was burned, but that fire made me who I am today." She never spoke with anger. Instead, she told her story like a quiet lesson, showing that even from pain, something beautiful could grow. Her shop stood as proof of that, full of colors, full of life, full of new beginnings. And as each girl walked out wearing her first handmade dress, Nafula knew the cycle had begun again. Just like her mother left her a gift, Nafula was now leaving gifts for others. From ashes, beauty had risen, and it kept rising, one stitch at a time.